Last night, I discovered a secret in my own house that changed everything I knew about my mother. Behind an old cupboard was a hidden safe stuffed with cash, weapons, and papers linked to the mafia. And when the Torino family came knocking, I realized my mom wasn't who I thought she was. She was hiding a past darker than I could ever imagine. Stay with me till the end, because the truth will shock you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories like this. 3 months ago, I lived in a $4.2 million house in California with my wife and kids. Today, I hold a letter that reveals my entire life was a lie. The woman who nearly destroyed me might have saved my life without knowing it. My name is Michael Thompson, and I'm 47 years old. Until recently, I was a commercial insurance adjuster in Pasadena. I spent my days assessing other people's disasters and helping them rebuild. I had what everyone called the American dream. My beautiful wife, Emily, was married to me for 18 years. Our twin kids, Ethan and Olivia, both 16, were sharp as tacks and the center of my world. We lived in a stunning hillside home. The view showed the city spread out below like a sparkling quilt. I thought I knew who I was, Michael Thompson, son of Margaret Thompson. My mother was a quiet librarian who raised me alone. My father died in a car accident when I was 12. My dad was supposedly an ordinary construction worker, gone too soon. Mom raised me on a librarian's salary in Ohio. We weren't rich growing up, but Mom ensured I had what I needed. She remembered everyone's birthdays and kept photo albums meticulously organized. She made sure I ate my vegetables and did my homework. Emily was my high school sweetheart. We met when I was 17, and she was 16. We fell in love with the reckless abandon of teenagers. She was ambitious and radiant, commanding a room effortlessly. She went into real estate after college and excelled. We built our life together, brick by brick. The kids came along, and we moved to California for better opportunities. We bought the dream house and enrolled Ethan and Olivia in private schools. Ethan was our star athlete, 6 feet 2 inches and built like his grandfather, or so I was told. I barely knew my dad. Ethan played varsity basketball, with colleges scouting him as a sophomore. Olivia was the artist, like my mother in her quiet way. Her gift for drawing made you see the world differently. For 47 years, this was my story. I was Michael Thompson, family man, insurance adjuster, former Ohio kid who made it in California. I had no reason to doubt it. Then it all unraveled. It started 18 months ago with small signs. Emily took phone calls outside. She came home later from work, citing new clients and bigger deals. She began looking at me like a stranger she was trying to decipher. The warmth we shared for nearly 2 decades cooled, degree by degree. I felt like I was living with someone who barely tolerated me. The kids noticed, too. Ethan asked why Mom seemed angry all the time. Olivia spent more time in her room. Her drawings turned darker, portraits of smiling families that looked broken. I thought it was a phase, maybe midlife stress or work pressure. I tried talking to Emily and planning date nights. I did anything to reconnect with the woman I'd loved since I was a teenager. Nothing worked. My efforts only made her colder, more hostile. Then came the divorce papers, not just a separation, but an assault on everything I knew. According to Emily's lawyer, I was a gambling addict hiding massive debts. They called me financially irresponsible, possibly dangerous, unfit for custody. They had bank statements showing transactions I never made. They had casino receipts with my signature I never signed. Witness statements claimed I'd borrowed money and never repaid it. None of it was true, not a word. Yet they had documentation for everything. The courtroom was a nightmare. I watched my life dismantled by lawyers who treated me like a criminal. Emily, the mother of my children, wouldn't even look at me. We shared a bed for 18 years. When the judge awarded her everything, the house, custody, my business assets, I felt something shatter. The worst came outside the courthouse. Emily approached with a cold, satisfied smile I'd never seen. She leaned in and whispered, "You'll never see Ethan and Olivia again. I'm moving them to Portland next month, and you can't afford to fight me." I knew this wasn't just a marriage falling apart. It was something calculated, cruel, beyond my understanding. Within 6 weeks, I lost my house, my kids, and my insurance license. The fabricated financial misconduct allegations destroyed me. With nowhere else to go, I returned to Ohio. I went to my mother's empty house, untouched since her death 2 years ago. I packed what little I had into my Honda Civic. I drove 1,200 miles to a place I hadn't lived since I was 18. That's where this story truly begins. The drive from California to Ohio took 3 days. Each mile felt like a step backward in time. I pulled into the driveway of my mother's house on Maple Street in Akron. I felt like a ghost haunting my own past. The house was unchanged since Mom's funeral. It was a small, neat 1960s ranch home. It had white siding and black shutters. The front porch was just big enough for 2 chairs and a table. Mom sipped tea and read library books there. I sat in the car for a long time before going inside. This was supposed to be temporary, a place to regroup. I planned to figure out how to get my life back. Looking at that modest house, I realized how far I'd fallen. 3 months ago, I saw downtown Los Angeles from my bedroom window. Now, I was staring at Mrs. Peterson's garden gnomes across the street. My mother, Margaret Thompson, lived in this house for 35 years. She bought it when I was 12, right after my father died. She used his life insurance money and their small savings. It was a purchase of hope more than logic. A single mother with a librarian's salary took on a mortgage. She believed her son deserved a backyard and his own room. Mom was the most quietly strong person I'd ever known. She never remarried after Dad died. She never even dated, as far as I could tell. She threw herself into raising me and her work at the Akron Public Library. Every morning, she made breakfast and packed my lunch. She walked 6 blocks to work, carrying her lunch in a brown paper bag. Every evening, she came home with a stack of books. Some were for work, some for pleasure, some for me. She made our small life feel rich and full. We didn't have money for fancy vacations. She created adventures in our backyard. We'd set up a tent and camp under the stars. She'd tell me stories about constellations. We shared a thermos of hot chocolate. When I got into model airplanes, she worked extra hours at the library. She bought me kits and sat with me at the kitchen table. We painted the tiny details, even though her eyes weren't great. What I remember most about my mother was her quiet certainty. She always knew how much money we had. She knew when bills needed to be paid. She knew what I needed before I did. For a woman widowed young, she never seemed worried or overwhelmed. She handled everything with calm competence. I felt safe in a way I didn't appreciate until I became a parent. We always had just enough money. Never plenty, but never desperate shortage. When I needed school clothes, there was money for them. When the car broke down, she had it fixed. When I wanted to go to college, she made it happen. She never explained how she saved enough. I asked her about it once in my 20s, newly married to Emily. I was starting to understand how expensive life could be. "Mom, how did you do it?" I asked. "How did you give me everything on a librarian's salary?" She smiled her quiet smile. "You find a way when someone you love depends on you," she said. "That's what parents do." Unlocking her front door, I stepped into her house for the first time since her funeral. I smelled her presence everywhere, lavender soap and old books. That scent always meant home to me. The furniture was exactly where she'd left it. Her reading glasses sat on the end table by her favorite chair. Her last book, a mystery novel about a crime-solving librarian, lay open. A bookmark marked her place. Walking through those rooms, I felt the weight of everything I'd lost. My kids were 1,000 miles away. They were probably being told terrible things about their father. My wife had become a stranger who hated me with an intensity one couldn't grasp. My career was destroyed, my reputation in ruins, my bank account empty. In my mother's living room, surrounded by her books and photos, I made a decision. This house was the one thing Emily's lawyers couldn't take. It was mine, free and clear. It was a gift from a woman who spent her life ensuring I had solid ground. I'd renovate it, sell it, and use every penny to fight for my children. It seemed like a good plan. I had no idea my mother left me something far more valuable than real estate. The divorce proceedings started 8 months after Emily asked for space. I should have seen it coming. I still believed we could work things out. I thought it was about our marriage, not something darker. I'll never forget the morning the papers were served. I was getting ready for work, same routine for 15 years. Coffee, shower, kiss Emily goodbye, though she barely acknowledged me. The doorbell rang at 7:30. A process server handed me an envelope. It destroyed everything I thought I knew. The petition didn't just ask for divorce. It demanded everything: full custody of Ethan and Olivia, the house, my business assets, my retirement accounts. The allegations made my blood run cold. They claimed I was a compulsive gambler hiding massive debts. They said I stole from client escrow accounts to feed my addiction. They painted me as reckless, unstable, and dangerous to my children. None of it was true. I'd bought maybe 5 lottery tickets in my life. I never set foot in a casino or played poker with friends. I built my insurance practice on trust and reliability. Every client account was clean, every penny accounted for. Yet Emily's attorney had documentation for everything. When I confronted her that evening, she was packing boxes in our bedroom. "Emily, what is this?" I asked, holding the divorce papers. My hands were shaking. "Gambling addiction? Theft? You know none of this is true." She didn't look up from folding her clothes. "I know what I know, Michael," she said. "The bank statements don't lie." "What bank statements?" "Show me," I demanded. She turned to face me. I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger or hurt, but something cold and calculating. She looked like a complete stranger. "You're not the man I married," she said quietly. "Maybe you never were." The next 6 weeks were a blur of legal meetings and document reviews. My life was dissected by strangers. Emily's lawyer, Patricia Voss, presented evidence that seemed impossible to fake. Bank statements showed withdrawals I never made. Casino receipts had my signature from places I'd never been. Credit card charges appeared for online gambling sites I'd never heard of. My lawyer, Robert Chen, handled my business contracts. He kept shaking his head as we reviewed everything. "Michael, is any of this real?" he asked. "If you've been hiding gambling debts, I need to know for damage control." "Rob, I swear on my children's lives," I said. "I've never gambled more than a church raffle ticket. Someone is setting me up, and I don't know how or why." The evidence kept coming. Witness statements claimed I borrowed money and never repaid it. A coworker swore he saw me placing bets on my phone during lunch. My neighbor, Jerry Hill, signed an affidavit. He said he'd watched me become erratic and desperate over the past year. I'd had beers with Jerry dozens of times. The worst was watching my kids through this. Ethan started avoiding me, spending time at friends' houses. He gave one-word answers when I asked about basketball or school. Olivia still hugged me goodnight. I saw confusion in her eyes. She was trying to reconcile the father she knew with the man everyone described. The custody evaluation was humiliating. Dr. Martinez, a court-appointed psychologist, asked about my mental health. She questioned my relationship with my children and my financial habits. She was professional but distant. I could tell she'd read Emily's accusations before I walked in. "Mr. Thompson, addiction often involves denial," she said. "Many gambling addicts hide their behavior from family." "Doctor, I'm not in denial because I'm not an addict," I said. "I'm telling the truth." She made notes and said she'd include my statements in her report. The final hearing was on a Tuesday in November. I drove to the courthouse knowing I might lose my children. I hoped the truth would come out. I prayed someone would see through the game being played. The courtroom was sterile and cold, not like movie legal scenes. Judge Patricia Winters, in her 60s, had seen every kind of family destruction. She seemed unsurprised by any of it. Emily's lawyer presented her case with surgical precision. Bank records, witness statements, and expert testimony painted me as a double life. They said my addiction escalated, stealing from clients and lying to everyone. My lawyer did his best with what we had, my word against a mountain of evidence. He pointed out inconsistencies in witness statements. He questioned the timing of financial transactions. He argued the evidence was circumstantial. It wasn't enough. Judge Winters awarded Emily primary custody, the house, and most assets. I got supervised visitation every other weekend. I had to complete a gambling addiction program and financial counseling. As we left the courthouse, Emily caught up to me in the parking lot. She was smiling, actually smiling, as she delivered the final blow. "You'll never see Ethan and Olivia again," she said. "I'm moving them to Portland next month, and you can't afford to fight me." That night, I sat in my empty apartment. I tried to understand how my life became unrecognizable in under a year. Living in my mother's house was like stepping into a time capsule. Everything was as she'd left it when she died 2 years ago. Her coffee mug sat in the dish drainer by the kitchen sink. Her reading glasses lay folded on the end table by her armchair. Her slippers were positioned neatly beside her bed. It felt like she'd step back any moment. The first few weeks, I barely left the living room couch. I woke each morning hoping it was a nightmare. I wanted to open my eyes in my California bedroom. I wanted Emily beside me and the kids getting ready for school. Every morning, I saw the water stain on Mom's ceiling. My old life was gone, probably forever. Depression hit like a physical weight. Some days, I couldn't shower or make coffee. I lay staring at the ceiling, thinking of Ethan and Olivia. I wondered what Emily was telling them about why I wasn't there. Were they worried about me? Did they think I'd abandoned them? Did they believe the lies about gambling and stealing? After a month of self-pity, something snapped. Maybe it was my mother's voice in my head. She used to say problems don't solve themselves by wishing. Maybe it was survival instinct. I realized I needed money to get my children back. The only asset I had was this house. The place needed work. Mom maintained it, but she was in her 70s when she died. Some things had slipped. The kitchen cabinets needed refinishing. The bathroom needed updating. The whole place needed fresh paint. To sell it for enough to fund a legal battle, I had to make it shine. I threw myself into renovation with desperate energy. I stripped wallpaper, sanded floors, and painted every room. Working with my hands felt good. After months in lawyers' offices feeling helpless, this was action. Every nail I hammered, every wall I painted, was fighting back. The basement was the last area I tackled. Mom used it for storage, packed with decades of stuff. Boxes held Christmas decorations, old photo albums, my school projects. Going through her things was emotional but comforting. It reminded me of who I was and where I came from. It reminded me of the woman who raised me to be honest and hardworking. Then I noticed something strange about the furnace area. The basement had a corner where the old oil furnace sat. It was converted to gas in the 1990s but never moved. The concrete floor around it looked different. There were recent scratch marks. I knelt to examine them. Dust settled in patterns that didn't make sense. It looked like the furnace had been moved recently. That was impossible. Mom had been dead for 2 years. Before that, she was too frail to move anything heavy. The furnace weighed several hundred pounds. She couldn't have moved it alone. I couldn't think why she'd want to. The evidence was clear: scratches, dust patterns, fresh scuff marks on the furnace. I spent an afternoon figuring out how to move it. I disconnected the gas line, which scared me. I used a furniture dolly and leverage to shift it 3 feet. My back screamed, but it was worth it. Behind the furnace, set in the concrete wall at shoulder height, was a small safe. I'd never known it existed. It was an old-fashioned combination safe, 18 inches square. It was painted the same gray as the wall, blending in. The metal was worn smooth, like it had been opened many times. There was no brand name or indication of its age. I stared at it for 20 minutes, my mind racing. How long had it been there? Why had my mother never mentioned it? What was inside, hidden behind a furnace? The combination lock had numbers from 0 to 99. That meant 10,000 possible combinations. Cracking it could take forever. Then I remembered something my mother did. Every year on my birthday, March 15th, she called at 7:23 a.m. Not 7:30 or 7:15, but 7:23 exactly. She said it was the time I was born. She wanted to celebrate that precise moment. March 15th, 1977, 031577. My hands shook as I turned the dial. Right to 03, left to 15, right to 77. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft click, and the heavy door swung open. What I found inside changed everything I knew. The safe was deeper than it looked. It was packed full. First, I saw money, more cash than I'd ever seen. Stacks of $100 bills, bound with rubber bands. Some were old and yellowed, others crisp and new. My hands trembled as I counted. It totaled $847,000. Beneath the money were documents. Multiple driver's licenses, all with my mother's photo, but different names. Isabella Reyes from New Mexico. Maria Santos from Arizona. Catherine Walsh from Nevada. The photos showed Mom at different ages. It was definitely her. Younger versions had a harder, watchful look in her eyes. I'd never noticed it when she was alive. There were social security cards matching the licenses. Birth certificates and a passport for Isabella Reyes, dated 1988. All looked authentic, like official government documents. My mother, Margaret Thompson, had lived under multiple identities for decades. At the bottom was a sealed envelope. It had my name, Michael, in her careful handwriting. It was the script from birthday cards and grocery lists. I sat on the basement floor and tore it open. Inside were 3 pages in her handwriting. The first line froze my blood. My dearest Michael, if you're reading this, they found you, and I'm no longer here to protect you. The letter destroyed everything I believed about my life. Your real name is Michael Castellano. Your father didn't die in a car accident when you were 12. His name was Vincent Castellano. He was murdered by the Torino crime family in Chicago on September 18, 1989. I witnessed his murder because I was supposed to die with him. Instead, I ran. I took you and ran. 3 months later, I testified against the men who killed your father. It was before a federal grand jury. I stopped reading. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the paper. Vincent Castellano, not a construction worker dead in a traffic accident. He was murdered by the mob. My mother wasn't just a widow making ends meet. She was a witness in a federal case. The letter continued. We entered the Witness Protection Program in January 1990. I became Margaret Thompson. You became Michael Thompson. We moved to Akron, Ohio, to start over. The government gave us new identities. We got a modest settlement to establish our new lives. They promised we'd be safe if we never contacted our old life. We could never reveal who we really were. Everything made sense. Mom always had just enough money despite her salary. She avoided talking about our life before Ohio. She taught me not to trust strangers too quickly. She said never reveal too much personal information. Always be aware of my surroundings. I thought she was just protective. She was keeping us alive. The money in this safe is what remains of our government settlement. I added to it by living carefully. But, Michael, there's something else you need to know. I discovered it too late to warn you properly. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I hired private investigators to watch you in California, starting 3 years ago. Not because I didn't trust you. I'd heard rumors that people were asking about the Castellano family again. What they discovered broke my heart. Your wife, Emily, was working with people hunting us for decades. They found you first and used her to get close. The room spun around me. Emily, my high school sweetheart, the mother of my children, worked with my father's killers. I don't know if she understood what she was involved in. They may have manipulated her, like they tried with you. The divorce, the false gambling evidence, it was designed to break you. They wanted you financially and emotionally ruined. They forced you back to Ohio. They knew I might have left something here. It could lead them to other witnesses or evidence from the case. I felt sick. Everything, losing my house, kids, reputation, was orchestrated. People had hunted my family for over 30 years. But my mother left me a way to fight back. There's a phone number at the bottom of this letter. Call Marshal Theodore Vance with the U.S. Marshals Service. He's been waiting for this call since I died. Tell him you're Vincent Castellano's son. Tell him you're ready to finish what we started. The number was in red ink, underlined 3 times. Below it, Mom wrote a final message. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. I wanted you to have a normal life, to be happy without looking over your shoulder. I always knew this day might come. You are stronger than you know, Michael. You come from a line of people who don't back down from fights. Your father would be proud of the man you've become. I know I am. Use the money wisely. Get your children back. Sometimes the worst thing leads you exactly where you need to be. I sat on the basement floor for an hour. I stared at the letter, processing what it meant. My life was a lie, but not one that diminished me. It was a lie to protect me until I was strong enough for the truth. I picked up my phone and dialed Marshal Theodore Vance. He answered on the second ring, like he'd been waiting 35 years. Vance, he said. Marshal Vance, this is Michael Thompson. I think my real name is Michael Castellano. There was a long pause, then a deep breath. Son, I've been waiting for this call since your mother died. Where are you right now? I'm in my mother's house in Akron, sitting next to an open safe she left. Don't touch anything else. Don't talk to anyone. Don't leave that house. I'll be there in 4 hours. Marshal Vance was a tall, gray-haired man in his early 60s. He looked like he'd seen every kind of human evil and never got used to it. He arrived with 2 federal agents. They spent 6 hours going through Mom's things. They photographed documents, cataloged evidence, and asked about my life in California. Your mother was one of the bravest people I ever worked with, Vance said. We sat at her kitchen table around midnight. She knew they'd track down her son. She prepared for this day. The money, the safe combination using your birthday, the investigators in California. She wanted you to find this when you needed it most. The truth was worse than I imagined. The Torino crime family hunted witnesses from my father's murder trial for decades. They got smarter about it. Instead of killing, which drew federal attention, they destroyed lives subtly. They compromised those closest to their targets. They created chaos and financial ruin. They've been working on your case for at least 5 years, Vance explained. They found Emily through her real estate connections. They approached her as clients, then turned it into something else. Mom's investigators built a case during this time. They had recordings of Emily meeting Torino organization members. They had evidence of money changing hands and falsified documents. Witnesses were paid to lie about me. The gambling addiction story and fake bank statements were their work. They've used this playbook on 6 other witnesses in 15 years, Vance said. Create chaos, destroy credibility, wait for the target to run home. The Torino family didn't count on Mom's death 2 years earlier. It triggered U.S. Marshals Service protocols. They monitored the situation, waiting for someone to come for the Ohio safe house. We've had surveillance on this neighborhood for 2 years, Vance admitted. We knew if they forced you here, they'd make their move. We documented everyone showing unusual interest in this address. The biggest shock came the next morning. Emily was arrested at her Portland hotel at 6 a.m. 3 men following her were also arrested. She thought they were private investigators helping her divorce settlement. She didn't know they were tied to organized crime. Federal agents explained it to her in an interview room. She's agreed to testify, Vance told me over coffee. She's as much a victim as you are. They convinced her you were hiding gambling debts and other women. They showed her fake evidence, got her scared and angry. They offered to protect the kids and secure her financial future. The hardest call was to Ethan and Olivia. They were with Emily's sister in Portland, confused and scared. Their mother was arrested, and no one explained why. Dad, Ethan said, sounding small and young, not like the confident teenager I knew. Hey, buddy, I said. I know this is confusing, but everything will be okay. Your mom and I love you very much. None of this is anybody's fault. Are you really a gambling addict? Olivia asked. Mom said you stole money, and that's why we had to move. No, sweetheart, I said. I never gambled or stole anything. Some bad people lied to hurt our family. The police caught them. We'll be together again soon. It took 6 months to untangle everything legally. Mom's investigators' evidence, Emily's testimony, and the federal case cleared my name. The fake gambling records were exposed as forgeries. The witnesses who lied recanted. My insurance license was reinstated with a state board apology. Emily and I will never regain what we had. Too much damage was done. Too many lies were told. Too much trust was broken. We're working together to help our kids understand. She's in therapy, dealing with guilt for being manipulated. I'm in therapy, learning to trust again. We got our children back, and that's what matters. The Ohio house sold for enough to buy a smaller California place. It also funded college accounts for both kids. Ethan's back on the basketball team. His coach says colleges are still interested, despite his junior year disruption. Olivia's art is more hopeful now, more colorful. She still draws families that look like they've survived storms. I think of my mother every day. I think of the sacrifice she made for my normal childhood. It took courage to testify against murderers. She spent 35 years looking over her shoulder. She saved my life twice, once at 12, again at 47. I never got to thank her for either. The Torino case goes to trial next year. I'll testify, like my mother did. This time, I won't run afterward. This time, we'll finish what she started. Sometimes the worst thing leads you exactly where you need to be. My mother knew that. She ensured, even from beyond the grave, she could protect her son. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell me about a time someone in your family protected you in ways you didn't understand until later. For more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances, stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Remember, sometimes the people who love us most fight battles we never see.